Today, guys, we're going to summarize a new dev diary which has some exciting changes when it comes down to Navy. Hopefully, some of the changes here that you might incentivize you to dabble with the Navy a little bit. I know a lot of you guys are reluctant to change your Navy stuff because you want the easy strategy. And the PDX devs are aware of that. He says that why change the current system? Because currently it revolves around exploiting issues with the Navy. And there's a few issues like spamming naval bombers to eliminate a fleet, spamming bathtubs, there's spamming level 3 submarines. It's going to be really fun to see with this change if some of those exploits still actually work. I have a feeling they will. So here's the reason why they're changing this system. One, the exploits I just mentioned. There's no incentive to make good ships. To actually make the meta of Navy in HOI4 currently, it's incredibly historical. The combination of a capital ships being supported by screens with carriers at the back, unfortunately, is just less effective than just spamming the exploit strategies. So they want to simplify the design of ship making, which is awesome. They want to incentivize the meta of navies. It's been asked for that for so long now. Making historical choices, the Navy design and composition work in-game. They're going to rebalance the tech tree. They're going to rebalance the ship designer, hit profile, spotting, and fleet composition. They're basically changing how all these mechanics work. So first of all, as you can see here, they've divided up the naval tab as well as the naval upgrades. So you've got your main hulls here and some of the main upgrades, which is this bit. And also here, you've got all the upgrade bits. So now you don't have to scroll forever and ever and ever. Just keep scrolling forever and ever and ever to get to the upgrades at the very bottom. And a lot of the time, people weren't even aware of some of these mine warfare upgrades at the very bottom because they were so far on the tech tree. The naval tech tree needed simplifying, and having 2 tabs is going to make it a lot easier. The armor used to be a part of the hulls. So you'd go for, I think it was cruiser hull, and you'd have the cruiser hull upgrades, and then you'd have the heavy hull armor upgrades as well. They were separate techs. There used to be 2 of them for cruiser and 2 of them for battleship and battle cruisers. Now there's 3, so from 4 to 3, and now you don't have to go for the hulls before them too. So you can add on really strong armor onto earlier hulls, which is always pretty good too. Remember, having earlier hulls is usually a good idea because you can make them a lot cheaper, pump them out in numbers. Numbers was like a big strategy, and I wonder if maybe pumping out numbers might be de-incentivized now. We'll see. And these are the upgrades now. So now you can see the ammunition techs, the passive upgrades, are now built within the trees of the, in this case, light turrets, medium turrets, and heavy turrets, where before they were on a separate tier, which is kind of how it works currently if you think about it. Like the infantry tab has like the passive upgrades as well as the actual improvements on the equipment as well. So now they're all synchronized. They also included the multi-purpose turret. So there was 2 kinds of turrets. You had the ground-based light or heavy batteries. No, you had the anti-air batteries, and you had the option as a final upgrade to get one that was a multi-purpose one. And now it looks like there's multiple upgrades that are branched off now that are multi-purpose turrets. So just to summarize, light attack as well as anti-air built within one specific turret. And it looks like there's 3 upgrades where before there was only 1. And also there's a medium turret that also has anti-air capabilities as well. That's really interesting. My God, 1944 tech. Remember, guys, ships take a long time to build. They take a long time to research. No one's making ships in 1944. The only way you get into this one early is if you use some kind of, I guess you're getting ahead of time, or you're using tech boost to get to that point. That's the only way you could really realistically do it. So I kind of don't like the fact these are 1944. These are way too far in the future. It's nice that they've thought about this. It's nice that they've introduced this, but man, it's kind of annoying that this technology is so far in the future. So if it's a medium turret, it's going to do 2 things. It's going to add light attack. It's going to add HP, which is the amount of damage a ship takes before it sinks. And 3, it will have anti-air capabilities. So it's nice to have a turret that does so much. But it kind of explains why it's 1944 tech, because it is really advanced technology and it does so much. These technologies, though, have not changed. These are exactly how they were before. They'll be disappointing, to be honest with you. It would have been nice if they merged damage control and fire control systems into one tree with 6 techs in it. I feel like in HOI4, it's always an incentive to make things that focus on offensive technology, offensive damage. Mines are a defensive thing, apart from the mine sweeping, I guess. So it feels to me like there's not really much point in doing them, hence the reason why I'm not a big fan of them. This is a technology that I've never done. This is basically dropping mines from planes and also mine sweeping with planes as well, which is really cool tech. And this allows you to drop mines as submarines too, increase the mine laying technologies. Once again, technologies you guys weren't even aware probably even existed. And for the most part, I probably researched them once in total of ever playing HOI. The basic medium battery now unlocks a bunch of different modules because they're all confined. So as you can see now, the bigger turret has option for heavy attack and it's got HP. The medium one has HP but light attack, and the light one just has extra light attack. Simplifying the text here, so the passive upgrade as well as the actual modules. Now let's finally address the big elephant in the room. Dual purpose guns now branch launch off the light gun line. They are the 1939 onwards tech. The UK, Japan, and France starting with the basic dual-purpose battery research, and the historical ships starting equipped with the dual-purpose battery and dual-purpose secondaries. Dual-purpose guns like the piercing of a regular guns that make up for it for their AA capabilities. Oh, that's interesting. So UK, USA, Japan, and France will start with it unlocked. So they'll start with this first one unlocked. I think that's what it's trying to tell us. So as a sacrifice for having some anti-air capabilities built within a light gun, you lose some piercing, which I'll be totally down to do that, to be honest with you. Armor and piercing stats are something that I feel like most cases when I make my ships, I never really think about them. I just usually try and stack as much light attack as possible and air attack as possible. So these are primaries. I believe these are secondaries. Primary and a secondary, primary and a secondary. And the primary seems to add extra steel on as well. Once again, probably not a change from the existing game, but something to note. And then we have the advanced medium dual purpose battery, the king of dual purpose batteries with lots of light attack, anti-air capabilities, piercing, reduces speed, and also adds extra HP. Be really interesting to see if you could make the most advanced ship possible by stacking as many of these on as possible and seeing how well they fare. Will the new meta be spamming as many advanced medium dual purpose batteries as possible? That is a good question. So they're rebalancing how hitting works and accuracy. Certain upgrades will increase the chance of hitting. So it looks like if you want to make your ship less likely to be hit, it needs to have less surface visibility and more speed. And the weather and time of day can have an impact on that as well. These are one of these changes where it's kind of cool to see them theory craft it. It's really difficult to find out in game how much impact that will actually be. I think the biggest issue sometimes with HOI is that because we start off with a navy, we just usually send our death stack navy into the enemy's death stack navy, and then we just kind of see what happens, you know. And there's not a lot to learn from that because these are pre-built ships and we've not had to build them from the ground up, so we don't really have like a lot of control. I mean, the only nation in the game that has this option is Germany, where you start off with basically any ships and then you kind of have to build them all from the ground up, I guess. There really isn't many technologies in HOI that increase ship production, but it'd be really cool if there was a button that said, like, I don't know, it costs lots of civilian factories, but it makes ships build significantly faster in peacetime. There just needs to be some incentive to build a fleet from the ground up that's actually possible, because when it takes 4 years, 3-4 years to make a battleship, I mean, there you go, you've got one battleship, but that's not really going to help you when the actual war kicks off, you know. And a lot of the time when you invest in your military factories and your ground technologies, I feel like you're actually making a bigger impact on the game because you'd be able to conquer a large amounts of land. But when you make a big impact on your navy, you're not really doing a great deal. The only really thing that navies do is add shore bombardment, and then you've got the pride of the fleet bonus, which gives 5 war support. They're the only 2 factors that make an impact on ground warfare, which is kind of annoying. So it looks like radar and fire control increase light and heavy guns chance to hit. Homing torpedoes now increase the chance to hit. Homing torpedoes used to increase the amount of damage they output, so they've probably nerfed the amount of damage they do. And the base critical chance has been reduced as well. So torpedoes used to have a really high chance of critical hit, and now I think they've reduced that. Basically, if you've not noticed, they're nerfing submarines to the ground, which makes sense, I guess. Spotting is now capped at a minimum of 0.01 progress per day. This is such a good change. If you had less spotting chance than the enemy fleet, you would gain no extra spotting over time. You'd basically stay at 0 spotting. If they had more spotting than you or equal spotting, there'd be no progress made. What they've done now to change that is you will always gain a plus amount of spotting if you actively are spotting within a region. Oh, this is such a good change. But be aware, the minimum is 0.01% per hour, which equates to 417 days to spot a fleet. Even taking that into account, it's not really realistic to spot an enemy fleet if you have very, very, very little spotting. How do you increase spotting? Radar, sonar, air superiority, ground-based radar as well, ship speed, surface visibility of your fleet. Lower is better. There's also a random chance to spot and encounter equal to your hourly progress. So if you have a 4% hourly progress, you have a chance of 4% to encounter the task force. So it looks like it's just a random chance based on the existing spotting to increase your existing spotting chance. That's how I'm interpreting that. So if you've already got some spotting, there's a chance that that spotting chance can be increased even more. It feels like the higher you get with your spotting initially, the more likely chance you're going to get a random spot chance and just find the fleet anyway. Sub and surface detections for a task force are now listed in the task force information tooltip. So it gives a breakdown of speed, range, sub detection, surface detection, slowest ships, and the shortest ranges. First joining an ongoing battle was very painful, and making strike force was much less useful. This should be much less of an issue with much lower and shorter lived penalties for positioning. It looks to me like they've decreased the penalties for strike forces. Finally, convoys no longer count as carriers for screening, but instead need 0.04 screens per convoy. Interesting. For a strike force, to understand what a strike force is a fleet that sits in a dock and waits for the patrol ships, the spotters, find the enemy fleet, and then they call the strike force to go out to sea to intercept the enemy fleet that's been spotted. Now, strike forces had big penalties. It was almost like you were disincentivized to make a big death stack strike force for obvious reasons, because that used to be the old meta prior to man the guns. It looks to me like some of these penalties aren't as bad, but some of them are worse. I don't fully understand it. Once again, if anyone knows in the comments below, let me know. Firstly, I want to say that I no longer have a medium cruiser and light cruiser guns on the same design. Fitting both with invalidate the design. Ah, interesting. This will eliminate one of the largest exploits of the current ship design and should prevent ships from unintentionally protected by a screening. They are de-incentivizing you from making ships that do multiple things. So it's like medium and light cruiser guns can't be fixed onto the same ship. Now, it either has to be a medium cruiser or a light cruiser. Interesting. Once again, when you don't make fleets very often, you care less about the stat. Like, everyone cares about tank designers. Everyone cares about that because everyone mid-maxes every single stat. But the honest truth is, when it comes down to ships, like, people aren't as invested in it. So it looks like now overstacking a ship reduces its speed. The old meta was to try and have ships produce in mass numbers without having too many modules attached onto them. And it feels like they're incentivizing that play even more now. So it looks like the base amounts of speed is generally going up, but the modules reduce the speed further. So everyone knows when this change happened, everyone's going to test out the old methods to see if they work. Everyone's going to make bathtubs. Everyone's going to make Submarine 3 spam. Everyone's going to make light cruiser spam. You know, all the old meta they exploits, and just see how effective they are. I have a feeling people are just going to find new exploits. I don't think this is going to make a big difference. I think at the moment, because people don't understand the ships that well, they revert back to the cheese meta. To be honest with you, I do the same. I'm not the only one. Subs now have more visibility, so they've nerfed submarines again. Surprise, surprise. It looks like fire control systems and radar increase the hit chance of light attack and heavy attack, which in an unsurprising way makes sense. That the technology breakthroughs on ships for radar and fire controls feel like something you should always upgrade on your ships. If there's ever an upgrade you want to refit your ships with, it's with better fire control and better radar. At the end of the day, that's like the most technological edge. But an extra 10% extra hit chance of heavy and light attack for radar 4, that's pretty massive. Also, basically, they've removed the attack advantage and now it increases hit chance. I think hit chance is going to be the new meta then, isn't it? You're going to stack as much hit chance as possible, and that's what's going to result in you doing all the nitty-gritty damage. Fire control used to reduce reliability, which I fully never understood. I never understood. Fire control is the mechanism of like guns computing targeting system. I don't really understand why it reduced reliability. I never understood that. Torpedoes have been nerfed. Surprise, surprise. They increase hit chance now, which are new values. Overall, torpedo launchers do less damage. Armor used to increase HP and increase the armor stat, but now armor also has been buffed by reducing critical chance by torpedoes and overall damage of torpedoes. Wow, torpedoes are getting nerfed so hard. Oh my goodness. One issue that many worry will remain is death stacking or putting all ships in one big blob. This will remain the foremost strategy. Reduced positioning penalties for joining battles is nice, but won't solve the core issue massively. More ships equals more IC, almost guaranteed victory. Max positioning penalty has been increased from 50% to 75%. This will make death stacking not quite as good from our tests so far. If you enter a battle and you have got considerably more ship than your opponent, it looks like the max penalty for positioning now is 75%. Positioning affects all the stats going into battle. This is the problem. If you have a nice, confined, small fleet of advanced ships, you're still going to lose to a death stack, even if the positioning penalty is like, in this case, 75%. Really interesting to see with this new change what impact it's going to have. Right now, it makes destroyers and carriers easier to hit, but slower cruisers and battleships are getting a 2 to 5% lower chance to hit. So it's simply flattening out those high chance to hit situations to become less extreme. So it looks like universally all ships are going to be harder to hit. Destroyers and carriers, a tiny adjustment. The capitals are getting a large reduction to hit, 2 to 5%. What impact will that make on actual battles? Hard to say. Fire control modules stop giving reliability penalties. They are quite silly and make zero sense. Overall, quite impressive rework. Yeah, they've been removed. There were once again a system that I never fully understood has been removed. Thank goodness. There will not be a video on that. Let me know, will you actually experiment with navies more, or will they just incentivize you to try and exploit more? God, I think I'll be exploiting more. See, this is the big change they need to make to navies. They need to make it have an actual impact on your nation as a whole, or have a meaningful impact on land combat. Now, shore bombardment is awesome. It's a really good start, but I need more. If I build capital ships, they should have a meaningful impact on either war support or stability, and therefore, if I lose these ships, they should have an impact on stability and war support, therefore incentivizing me to make these big ships to actually use them in combat and whatnot. But there needs to be like an incentive that can have a meaningful impact on my nation by making these big ships. That's the reason people exploit, because there's no incentive to do it. I really appreciate PDX making these changes, because these are all, for the most part, decent changes. But once again, give me an incentive to make navies better. It all comes down to how much of impact it makes on stats like stability, war support, manpower, factory output, supply systems, and whatnot. It's going to make an impact on all of that. And if I'm playing a single player game, there really isn't any impact other than a little bit of war support from Pride of the Fleet. Oh yeah, they're playing Brazil again. So that's 2 dev dives we've seen so far with them playing Brazil. Ooh, is that we gonna get a Brazil focus tree? Let me know in the comments, guys. Are you excited by a Brazilian focus tree? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Goodbye. You think this video was good? Well, this one is the final form. Click it.